What is Kundalini? Is it a process or is it an energy? I teach it as being both of these things, and beyond embodying our higher self, we understand the process of Kundalini is taking separated, polarized energy and seeing that energy going through the process of unification, the process of oneness. Above our higher self, on an eighth dimensional level of consciousness, we find the consciousness of ascended masters. Ascended masters are people like Jesus, Buddha, Merlin, and or Babaji, the founder of Kriya Yoga. And we can channel the consciousness of ascended masters because all ascended masters have gone through the process of Kundalini awakening, but they've all gone through that process in their unique way. So when we tap into eighth dimensional consciousness, the process is one of bringing the enlightened consciousness of ascended masters, which is slightly different depending on the ascended master that we're tuning into, because their process of a Kundalini rising, balancing their masculine and feminine energies to become the embodiment of their higher self so that they have power within our reality and are a divine expression of truth, we can experience the consciousness of each ascended master in a slightly different way, although they all contain and embody the same essence of truth. So if we're channeling Babaji, then we'll have more Kriya Yoga in our ascension process. If we're more of a vibrational match for Christ consciousness, the consciousness of Jesus, then we'll experience more Christ consciousness, light, energy in our ascension, in our awakening process, because we embody more of the information and the knowledge of that ascended master into our body. If we're connected to Buddha, we're going to open in more levels of compassion, which is going to open our heart chakra, our heart energy center. If we're becoming the embodiment of Merlin and understanding how magic interplays with our reality and how we have the ability to shape and work with reality in this sense, which to me is the one main aspect of Tantra in a tantric path, we see that the process or the ascension, the information we rise with, is different depending on our vibration and the ascended master's consciousness that we're aiming to bring into our body. Although this is quite a high and an advanced level, and it's a beautiful process to embody Christ consciousness, to embody Buddha, to find Kriya Yoga naturally in our body, or to experience reality on a vibrational level, to come to a greater understanding of how the universe works, because this is what a Kundalini rising gives us. There's another level of embodiment which taps us into the embodiment of deities, of mantra beings, of frequencies, of energies. And this is more of a tantric process of allowing these deities and energies into our body. And they can all teach us different things, but we have to be careful if we're embodying such energies or entities or deities that we really have purity in our heart, because if we don't have this, their vibration, their frequency becomes what we already are. So this process can become demonic, just as the process of descending knowledge, descending the energy of an ascended master into our body, or primarily what we're learning in Kundalini bodywork is to surrender to the consciousness of our higher self, because this is attainable for most people to go through this process of our upper store of spiritual, coiled, suppressed energy, to bring that into our body, into this polarized place where we learn from polarity, from masculine and feminine energy, which takes us up to a greater state of enlightenment, we have to be careful that this process doesn't get hijacked by a consciousness that isn't an ascended master, isn't a higher self, is not of a pure place. So if this process was hijacked and it went in a negative way, we could become the embodiment of the Antichrist. We could be deceived in our awakening process. And unfortunately, this does occasionally happen in the spiritual world. And what we're learning in these trainings is to surrender to God, to the consciousness of ascended masters, which is a collective consciousness of truth, where we tune in to the frequencies that we're a vibrational match for, which our body learns from, which brings our consciousness to a heightened level, gives us more compassion and empathy and joy and grace, as well as creating more powers and cities on the way. But this should never be the point of our process. So we can say that Kundalini is an energy because we have to have a spiritual store of energy above our head and a spiritual store of energy in the seat of Kundalini in our sacral chakra, in our sex chakra, in order for that to be activated and to go through that process of ascension. Now, if we're not bringing our higher self, descending our higher self down our spine into that seat to merge with our higher self, and we're not bringing the energy of ascended masters down that pathway to merge with our consciousness, to bring our consciousness to a higher level, the other process we learn in Kundalini bodywork is working with different polarized energies to clear the path of Kundalini. So we can run a lot of chi and prana through this pathway, but primarily the energies that we find in a polarized state that we can bring into unity through our spine and through our chakra system to our third eye, to become into unity, to come out of our crown, to merge with our higher self, a higher state of consciousness. We can work with emotional energy, and this is the process of healing. We can work with sexual energy, either in divine partnership with somebody else or our own sexual energy, and we can start to work with spiritual energy. And this is the way we clear the pathway of Kundalini to bring the body into a vibrational state so that we're able to embody our higher self and that we're able to tap into eighth dimensional consciousness and start to embody Christ consciousness, the teachings of Buddha on an embodied level, and the teachings of all the ascended masters, and to find the wisdom of yoga in our body, or the wisdom of very advanced magic, for a lack of a better word, that gives us this understanding of universal law, this understanding of how the mental realm that we live in, how it's all created. So if you ever go into a Kundalini bodywork session, the most important thing is to develop on the personal level so we can become the vibrational match of these higher energies. So I would say never surrender unless you're surrendering to your emotions, to your karma, to your higher self, or to eighth dimensional consciousness, to the consciousness of ascended masters. It is safe to surrender yourself to these energies, to surrender yourself to the innate intelligence of the universe, which works on vibration and frequency. And the more you trust this and the more you trust yourself, life can align using the law of attraction and vibration and polarity and magnetism and gender to create the reality that is destined for us as a human race, which is always on an evolutionary cycle of coming into more wholeness by creating more depth, by expanding in separation. Wholeness becomes more. This ultimately, from my understanding, is the process of consciousness expanding. So I would never surrender unless it is my higher self, my karma, my emotional body, or the consciousness of eighth dimension, ascended masters, or anything above that, which is basically God. And then our surrender is safe. It's bringing us into a greater place of trust with humanity. And then we can decide when we trust somebody else, we can surrender to another human being within our boundaries, within our parameters, from a place of inner knowing and trust, but that is still surrendering to our higher self. There are many grey areas and paradoxes in this work, and it's important to really deeply reflect on what surrender means to you, when it is wise to surrender and when it is not. I wish you the best of luck in this process.